Hi, everybody. You're listening to Coaching for Leaders. This is episode number 60, airing on October 22nd, 2012.
Produced by Innovate Learning, maximizing human potential.
Welcome to Coaching for Leaders. This is the show for leaders who want to improve themselves so they can better engage and develop others. Whether you're a seasoned leader or leading people for the first time, improving your leadership skills will drive your success, and most importantly, the success of others. This week's topic, if you're going to fail, fail forward. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back for another episode of Coaching for Leaders. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. My name is Dave Stachowiak, and I am coming to you from our studio out here in Orange County, California. And this is a show about leadership, but not about being a perfect leader or a perfect person. It's a show about how to be an authentic leader who can improve oneself in the hope that as improving oneself, we can be more effective at being able to engage and develop others and, by the way, be better and more effective individuals ourselves. And that's why I'm so pleased to welcome you to today's topic for episode number 60, which is if you're going to fail, fail forward. And I just am a strong believer that in leadership, that leadership is not about, at least effective leadership is not about the absence of failure, but the ability to learn from failure. And that's why I'm so pleased to welcome our guest this week, who I sat down and talked with last week. Actually, we were both sitting down, but we were across the globe because our guest this week is a gentleman named Stefan, and I'll introduce him here in a moment when we get on to the interview. And he is from Germany and has been listening to the show from the very beginning. And so rather than tell you a lot about him, we actually go into that in the interview, and I think you'll see why I asked him to join me for this episode and to talk about how we can use failure to help guide us forward. So let's jump right into my interview with Stefan. I've mentioned on the show many times before that one of the things that I am so grateful for of having been able to host this show over the last year or so now is to be able to get connected with people in the listening community, and in addition to being able to hear wonderful stories that help me to learn as a leader and help our listening community to learn as leaders too. And that's why I was really pleased to get connected with Stefan, who has been listening to our show from the very beginning. And we've been talking over email for, just about a year now, and been sharing experiences back and forth and talking about our careers and what's been progressing with our families. And he's had some wonderful life events happen in the last year. And as we were talking over the last few months, Stefan had shared with me a story of a transition he had gone through in his workplace and in his career. And I thought that this would be a story that would be of great benefit for the members of this community to hear. And so I am so pleased today to welcome Stefan to join us on the show. And Stefan has been listening from episode number 1 and is in the business world in Germany. And so he is joining me from across the globe. And I'm not going to introduce Stefan's company or organization name and you'll understand why when we go through this interview, just in based on just some of the transitions that have happened. But I am so excited to welcome you to the show, Stefan. Welcome to Coaching for Leaders.
Hi, Dave. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, it is a pleasure to welcome you from across the globe. And as we were talking just before the interview started here, and Stefan, I had 4 years of German in high school here in the States. And I am embarrassed that my German is extraordinarily poor, but I do want to say Guten Tag and welcome to the show.
Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. Well, I thought I'd start off here giving our audience a little background. When did you become a Coaching for Leaders listener? I know it was from the very beginning. And how did you originally hear about the show?
Yeah, Dave, that's I'm very interested in those kind of shows and regularly check iTunes to find such shows. And yeah, there's some out in the air, but not all are very good. And that's I got stuck with your show because the sound quality, the content, and everything else is very well. And I need to say that I didn't find a show in German so far.
Yes, and my German is very poor, so it's not likely I'll be producing a show in German anytime soon. But I really appreciate your listening and your faithful listenership over the last year and a half and your feedback to me. And one of the things that Stefan and I have talked about over email is our desire to really produce a quality show and to try and bring something of value each week and do it with good production quality too. So I'm so glad that was something that attracted you, because that was definitely part of our goal going forward. Could you tell our audience a little bit about your professional background?
Yeah, I'm working in the IT business, and in the IT business, I'm since let's say almost 10 years in different roles. So I was an IT manager in the army, and then I went to a company and built it up and had a sales position and product management position. And then from there, it took me to a bigger company where I then started in enterprise sales. And I did this for the last 4 years. And now I changed my role again in the same company that I got back to. So we will talk about that and have some kind of regional management role now.
Wonderful. So you've had really a diverse career already, and you're a fairly young guy, and I know that you have had some amazing leadership opportunities and done some wonderful things in your career already. So we'll get into that here in just a few minutes. But one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you today and share your story with our listeners is that you had a new opportunity that came your way in the not too distant past. So I was wondering if you could share the new opportunity that came your way and how it came across your radar screen.
Yeah, how did it come across the radar screen? I don't know how it is in the US, but here in Germany, the headhunters are very busy. And yeah, if you're working in IT business, especially in sales, you get a lot of offers. And yeah, the most of them I really dropped, but that one was an opportunity where I could have a position as a sales manager, leading a team and building up something. And that was very interesting for me. Even you talked about my age. It was a position where the management told me that I can grow into it. So they especially searched for a younger guy who comes with new ideas. So they wanted to get away from the somehow maybe old thinking, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's it. And then we had the first call, and I listened to them, and then we had a second call, and it needed a bit, and I needed to think a long time about it. But yeah, that's it.
So it sounds like they were really looking for someone just like you, and sought you out. Why was it an attractive opportunity to you as you learn more about the opportunity?
Yeah, so I need to say that it was not about the money. That was not the big game. So for me, it was really the chance to grow up. And from the other side, I already had a life plan where I wanted to be in a management position in my mid-30s. And that was something I was told that that I can build up a new team, that the company wants to grow. And yeah, is really looking forward to somebody who has already experience in building something up. And I did this before, in a smaller company. Mm-hmm. And yeah, thought I'm right for this, and this fits 100 perfect with my experience that I had from the past.
So at some point you went far enough along in this conversation that you had to make a decision as to whether or not you were going to move forward with this, or whether or not you'd potentially stay with your existing organization. And what transpired as you started to consider that decision point?
Yeah, in the end of the day, the position I I could get was really for Central Europe. I had a team already, and everything was set. That was the one side that I needed to think about. And I was so fair to talk to my employer about it, that I have a chance to go there, but that I really would like to do that in this company, in my old company.
Sure.
The good thing in my company is that you really can go to the management and talk about it. But at this time, it was not really possible to do that. So that they offered me something, but it was not that attractive than the position I could get.
So
that was the reason in the end. And I made my thoughts off because, the old company is really successful and growing.
Mm-hmm.
And the new company, I could make it my own, very successful and growing, but I didn't know if I leave a very successful ship.
Yeah. So it sounds like your preference was to stay with your old organization because you knew them well, and it sounded like things had been very successful, but that the opportunity was just so attractive to be able to do something that would be your own and to have more leadership and management experience in the new organization.
Yeah, exactly. That was the case in the end. Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned is that it wasn't about the money, but that you had really a life plan going forward about what it is that you wanted to get. Could you tell me more about that life plan? Because I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily think about or think through.
Yeah. So my plan was when I left the army to be in the industry and to jump up to the middle management, getting experience up front in, let's say, Europe business, and getting in touch with the right people. And then from my private point, I wanted to get married with the mid of 30, and also wanted to get, to be happy to have a child at this date.
Neat. So it really came back to a lot of your goals personally too, of that career path of what you could then, what it would allow you to be able to do in your personal life.
Yeah, that's right. So, and that's the thing. And looking forward from here, my wish would be in the mid of 40, being in a management position. So that's what I plan so far.
And I think that's a really important thing for all of us to remind ourselves of as leaders, is that too often, I think many people assume that the people we lead are motivated only by money, and that it's all about the paycheck at the end of the day or the end of the week. And in reality, for many, many people, I know this is true for myself, and it's true for you, Stefan, as well, that there's really so many more factors. There's lifestyle choices, there's the ability to learn, there's experiences, there's the ability to influence that really do factor into a lot of our decisions as to whether or not we're going to make career changes and how we're going to make those career changes. And it sounds like that was very much the case in this decision that you made.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So you ultimately did decide to move on to this new organization. And when you got there, it sounds like things didn't actually go as you had anticipated. When did you realize that things weren't quite as they were described to you in the interview process?
A few days before I started, so to say.
Oh, that soon.
Yeah. So I had a meeting up front in that company because there was a big presentation and the new strategy. And then I got in touch first time with the people of the organization in Europe. And I sat in a room with some more people, and they talked about, and they were concerning of a lot of stuff. And then I asked some questions, and then it always turned out that, things are going like they would like to have it. And the first thing that I acknowledged was that the willingness to grow and to invest for growth was not there like it was told to me.
Oh, interesting. And what was it that people said or maybe did not say that made you realize that the opportunity for growth just wasn't going to be there?
Yeah, it was about marketing investments and at this time it was like this, but later on, let's say mostly 80% of the stuff that the management has told me what they want to do and what they want to have in place turned 85 or turned directly around.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is then something where you say, okay, I left a very good ship where I was very passionate about it.
Yeah.
Working there, and that's so I thought 6 weeks about do I leave or do I not leave, and it really was one day this and one day this. Yeah, and in the end of the day, I said, wow, this was a very big mistake. And yeah.
So what were you thinking or feeling during that time as you were going back and forth of trying to determine if you wanted to stick with this decision or whether you wanted to potentially try to do something else?
What I thought about in this for this decision, or what I did consider for that one.
Yeah, what were you thinking or feeling as you were going through that decision process once you realized it wasn't as you expected it to be?
Yeah, on the one side, it really was like getting the holy grail, let's say. Yeah. So you're 35, you're in that position, it really fits to you. 1 second. It really fits to you, and that's what you wanted to have. And it seems that it is really exactly like it is for me, as it is for me. And on the other side, I really knew that the company I worked there for, let's say, 2 years and a few months. But I really put a lot of heart in this, and also build something up. And then it is really hard if you know the company is getting in the right direction, the future strategy is getting in the right direction. The people are very nice because you referred to the book Drive from Daniel Pink in your show, and the management of the company really is acting like this, and that's then also something that you really consider because you don't know how it is at the other side. But the holy grail was gluing and gluing, and then in the end of the day, I said, okay, I was shining. Sorry, yeah.
So what did you ultimately decide to do? Yeah,
in the end of the day, I talked to my direct manager and said, hey, I thought about it, and I decided not against you, but I decided to take the opportunity. And then we talked to the management about it, and then I left. But they said, okay, if it doesn't work out, you can call us, and we can talk about a comeback or something.
So you did ultimately decide to leave, and what happened after that?
You mean the new company or the old company where I went back to?
Yeah, I'm curious how that happened, because that just, at least here in the States, it's not common that somebody leaves an organization and then has the opportunity to come back. So I'm curious how that transpired.
Yeah, so people, let's say the people said that I can come back, and in the end of the day, you never know if it's true or if they say it because they want to be nice. But because of the shortness of my little journey, I really could talk to them. And what I did is I called my old manager and said, hey, I really did a very big mistake. You told me that I maybe should think about some more things, or the grass on the other side is greener, but in the end of the day, it's the same.
Yeah.
And I went back and I said, yeah, it was a big mistake, and can we talk about that I come back? And he said, yeah, so I need to talk to my management about it, but I don't want to close the door right now before I didn't talk to them. And one of the things that was for sure, I then talked to the management and they said, hey, Stefan, you are a valuable resource. We can talk about getting you back, but what we do not want is that you then leave in the next 6 months for the next position.
Right.
Yeah, and but after this experience, I would never have done that. Yeah.
So, in retrospect, I'm wondering what you would have done differently when considering this new opportunity.
I think there's two major things. The first thing is, if you really feel this well in a growing company, for me, I would say it's sometimes better to wait 1 or more years longer to then get your chance in the company you really like and love before you want it too much. But I think that has to do with personality and maybe also with my life plan. And on the other side, if you do such a step, really try to get more information, and that is sometimes very hard, because if a company is not so much known in the market, you really don't have the chance to call some people. Yeah, that's not so easy, and you really have also to have in mind that maybe somebody of the people you call knows somebody in your old company, and then you really have a problem. So I don't know. It was really hard. Maybe asking more direct questions in the interview could also be something that could help. And then really watching the people, how they react when they give you the answers.
Sure. And I know that you mentioned that one of the things that you'd certainly love to do is to be able to talk and dialogue with people more in advance. And it sounded like there wasn't much opportunity to do this with this new organization until you had already accepted the position. So it sounds like that would be one piece of advice you'd have for people if the opportunity presents itself to be able to have some dialogue. Do you feel like that? I know hindsight's always easy to look back. Was there an opportunity to do more of that you might have done in advance if you could go back and do it over?
You mean the dialogues with the people that I talked to?
Yeah.
I don't know. So it was a really, really long process. It was 6 or 7 steps of process that have been to get there. And I could talk to some people, and everybody was very nice. And I also could ask questions, and I asked questions out of my experience for sure.
Sure.
The answers were always, very green grass. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think that's very typical here in the States too, is that many organizations, when they are interviewing folks, regardless of position, tend to put their best foot forward, of course, and don't always share some of the, we have a term here called dirty laundry that might be present in the organization. And so that's certainly something to watch for if everything always seems perfect when you're walking into a new organization, because of course every organization has challenges. So it sounds like that would be one thing to watch for. And I'm also really interested in what you said about just having the company and the organization that you like and the dynamic and the environment that you like, because I think culture and the type of organization that you work for does say so much, even if you may not be in the ideal position for you. So it sounds like from your experience, one of the things you'd recommend for those of us who might be looking for other opportunities is that the organization itself and the organization's culture really is a key piece of success.
Yeah, and if you really put it on the decision scale, I didn't weigh the culture and the people enough. And that, in the end of the day, is what I find as my personal biggest mistake.
Oh, interesting. Is there anything that you feel like you could have done that would have given you some insight to culture, or things that you could have asked or been aware of around culture and organization that you wish you would have done?
By interviewing the new company, no, not really, because it was really not so known, and there were not so many people that I found in my social media that worked in that company before that I could have asked.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard. So if there's not enough press outside, or the only thing that you could do is calling some other headhunters who might know the company. That is something that I got got after I got back, because some headhunters called me and said, hey, you were such a short time there, what happened? And this could be a very good resource to get some information out of that.
What I really love about your story, Stefan, is how much I do hear this story and how typical your story is in some ways. And the first part of your story in particular, of going to interview for an organization, hearing about a new opportunity, regardless of how you hear about it, and hearing all the wonderful things from an organization and walking into it, and then it being something very different than was presented in the interview process. And this is, whether it's done intentionally or unintentionally, I think a lot of organizations really do struggle with being transparent in the interview process. And that's something that many managers and leaders struggle with. What I really love about your story, though, is what I think is unique about it, is how you responded to it when you realized that this wasn't all that it was promised to be. And I'm really just impressed with, first of all, how quickly you made the decision. So this was a very short period of time that you decided that it wasn't the right decision. And then the other thing that I thought was really neat about how you approached this is you went back to your old organization and were very honest about what you felt was a mistake that you had made, and approached them and said, hey, I made a big mistake. And I think that type of honesty and candor is sometimes missing in a lot of people's responses to something that they perceive to be a failure.
Yeah. So in the end of the day, what I can also say is maybe when you have those interview situations, maybe the other side, if you come to communication, there's a sender and a receiver. Mm-hmm. And maybe the company that I shortly worked for had the feeling that they communicated it so that I can understand it, but maybe then I didn't understand it or got it right.
Yeah, and that's where I think communication can become so complicated for so many of us, is that it really becomes all about, not only what we intend to send, but what we actually send, and then what's received or what we want to have received. And so that's where that communication can really break down, especially when there's two companies with two very different cultures that are that we're trying to interact with. And the other thing I love about your story too, Stefan, is that you were able to come back really quickly to your old organization. And that's not something that happens often. And it happens when someone has been just very faithfully diligent to serve the organization and be successful for an organization. And I'm sure that if you hadn't been the outstanding employee that I know you have been, because we've talked over time, that they would not have had you back. And so I think it says a lot about your ability to work through challenges, to admit a mistake, and then also to really rely on your track record to say, hey, I made a mistake, but I'd like to come back, and to be very honest and forthright about it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that they were willing to have you back.
Yeah, I think so.
So before I let you go, one of the things you mentioned, that your current organization and the organization you've worked with all this time and came back to has really done a great job of embracing some of the leadership principles we've talked about on this show, and used the book Drive that we've talked about from Daniel Pink. And so I'm curious of who's someone in your organization that's been a great leader or mentor to you, and what have they done that's been so successful for you?
Yeah, in my actual company, there's really one person I could mention, and this is a guy who really burns for the company, and he really is somebody who cares about people and wants to make them better. And this person, in my second year in the company, really said, "Hey, I see some things going wrong, and I want to take the time with you personally to let you better understand what kind of resources you can use in the international organization, and also how we sell this product very effective." And when new salespeople come in your organization, they have basic skills, that they need to have, like good writing, good communications, and all that. But in every company, it is really a difference to be good in selling that specific product. And that's also something that a lot of companies don't understand, that they have to educate the people how to sell the product effective.
And when you say that he said something that wasn't working, was that something that wasn't working with the company or something that wasn't working with you?
I think it was it wasn't working with me, but it also wasn't working with others. And so it was more or less maybe not a big, but a problem in the organization.
Sure.
And this person said, I can offer you all my experience that I have, but you also need to see that you have to come to me. So it was not like, hey, big king, I want to ask you something. But there were other people who didn't take that offer. And you could really see within 6 months that I got much more successful than others who had the same chance and they didn't take it. So that for me, that was very amazing to have such a person beside me who really was every time there for me when I called him and asked something.
And goes right back to one thing that I've always been a big believer in, Stefan, is that ultimately, even if someone is willing and able and wants to help drive our development, that ultimately at the end of the day, it's up to us as individuals to drive our professional development. And we can't just rely on a leader or a company to do that. So a great example of how someone who was willing to provide that for you, but you took the initiative to really reach out consistently and take the opportunity that person had put in front of you to get feedback, to get development, to get mentoring and coaching. And because you did that, you really were able to grow your skills tremendously in a very short period of time.
Yeah. And it's not for common that there's people, I know a lot of people who really say, I hold my little secret for me, how I'm successful, and don't share it with others. It's then good for the person because the person is successful, but it doesn't help if the rest of the company is not successful.
Well, I think that's such a great reminder for all of us in leadership roles, is that it's great for us to reach out to people and to empower them with the skills we have. If we keep them to ourselves, ultimately, we're not going to help the organization to grow. But also, like you said, the reminder that when people do that for us, to take advantage of that and to reach out and to utilize people as resources, because if we don't, then ultimately we're not driving our development. So I think it's just a great example of both of those principles on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Stefan, for joining me today on Coaching for Leaders. And I do want to mention, too, in spite of all the transitions that you've been going through and everything and changing career-wise, I know you're still very focused on your personal goals and family goals. And I mention that because you just got married back in August. So congratulations on continuing to move forward on all of your personal goals. And I am just excited to be connected with you. I'm excited for what you're going to do in the business world in Germany. And I can't wait to be able to meet you in person at some point down the road here.
I think there will be a chance in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining me today. There's a lot here that I think all of us can learn from. There's 3 things, though, that I pulled out of this conversation with Stefan that I think highlighting for all of us as leaders is key. First and foremost, his willingness to admit a mistake. And you notice that in his story, as he realized he had made a mistake, he very quickly came to terms with it. He took action to correct the mistake and went back and admitted to his prior employer that he had made a mistake. And that is something that for many of us as human beings, probably everybody, when we make a mistake and we know we've made a mistake, our first inclination, I think for many of us, is to minimize it or try to hide it or even cover it up. And we see again and again in the media that people who do that and respond in that way consistently really get themselves into a lot of trouble. People, on the other hand, though, who are effective leaders are able to work around that first inclination to cover things up and to really admit their mistakes and be willing to move on. So I think that this is a good example of a leader who's willing to admit a mistake and move on. The second thing I'd mention here is both something that I think is really great about Stefan, but also a caution for leaders, is he did great work. He did some amazing work for his employer, and I know some additional details that he didn't share in this interview, but he's done wonderful, wonderful work over a long period of time. And because of that, long-term investment that he made into his employer, they were very willing to consider him coming back. That is not something that an employer would do for everybody. And so I think it's really an important reminder for those of us in leadership roles and for those of us who perhaps have opportunities to move on to other opportunities in our lives and our careers, is that what we've done previously really does follow us. It may not follow us immediately, but it is going to follow us in the long run. And then third and finally, you notice Stefan continued to talk about his long-term career goals, his long-term plan, his long-term vision. And that's one of the things I really like about him, is that he has a long-term plan. He knows where he wants to go. He knows the types of skills he wants to learn and the experiences he wants to have. And when we have a long-term vision as leaders, when we run into the obstacles, not if, when we run into the obstacles are things that we are ready and willing to work around. If we don't have that long-term vision and we run into those obstacles, then those obstacles can stop us in our paths and be very debilitating. And that's why that long-term vision is so important for all of us. So I'm so glad that he was able to share that story. And I hope that you hop onto the website and jump in and leave Stefan a comment about his story. If you found it helpful, I know he would enjoy seeing that, and he may even jump in on the conversation. The easiest way to do that is to go to coachingforleaders.com/60. So coachingforleaders.com/60. That'll take you to the show notes for this episode and will give you a chance to engage with me, Stefan, and the rest of the listening community. Of course, you can always leave a message as well. And the number to leave a message for me, and I'd be happy to share that with our community as well, is 949-38-LEARN. And you, of course, can always reach me by email at feedback@coachingforleaders.com. Now, before I let you go, a reminder that in 2 weeks for episode number 62, we are going to be doing an episode on stories about great leaders. And I am asking you to submit a story about someone that has been a leader for you at some point in your life or career and has done something for you that has been helpful, either has told you a story, given you feedback, helped mentor, coach you, guide you in some way. And I would love to hear that story, and we will consider it with the stories that are submitted to us and potentially play that on episode number 62. And our goal, of course, is to play a whole bunch of stories on episode 62 here in 2 weeks that will be great leadership lessons that we can all benefit from. Nobody has the monopoly on great leadership wisdom and advice, and stories are just a wonderful way for all of us to be able to learn from each other. So here's what you need to do. Every one of us have a story. In fact, most of us have many stories we could tell about people in our lives who have done great leadership with us. So choose one, just one, and you can do one of two things. Call into our audio feedback hotline, same number I just mentioned a minute ago, 949-38-LEARN, and in 2 minutes or less, tell me the story on that hotline, and that way we can consider it for episode 62. The other thing you can do is go to coachingforleaders.com/speak. So again, coachingforleaders.com/speak. And if you do that, you'll see a little button that says record. And you can just record right into the microphone on your computer. If you've got a laptop or desktop with a built-in microphone, most computers do these days, you can just record right from your computer. And again, just 2 minutes or less. And that way we can share your story. And I'd love to hear a story from you. The deadline is November 1st, 2012. So it is coming up here in just a few days. So please submit the story. And by the way, if you'd like to know more, I did record a very brief video on this story guidelines. If you want some additional help as far as good ways to frame the story. You can just go to coachingforleaders.com/great story. No, that's not it. Don't go there. It's actually coachingforleaders.com/great leader. If you go to great story, you're not going to get anything. So go to coachingforleaders.com/great leader. And there's a real brief video there from me, just kind of walks you through what we're going to be doing on episode 62. So feel free to check that out. And then one other thing I wanted to let you know is those of you who have already subscribed to the Coaching for Leaders newsletter over email, big news. The first newsletter is coming out this week. And I'm excited to tell you, for those of you who have already subscribed, that there is going to be a very cool resource that's going to be in that newsletter, and it's just going to be sent out to newsletter subscribers. So if you would like to be a part of that, feel free to subscribe anytime. Go to coachingforleaders.com/subscribe, and you also will get the 10 books that make you a better leader. It's a book list and a video from me that will hopefully help you to become more effective as a leader. So watch for that email later this week with a very cool resource, and I'm excited to share that with our subscribers and see what you think. So thanks in advance for checking that out. And finally, thank you to Rogelio Berlanga, Charles Christian, Penny Rowe Morris, Neha Joshi, Jatniel Sagranas, and Alvaro Manuel Calvino Conasari. Oh, Alvaro, I hope I pronounced your name right. Hey, thank you to all of you who liked our page on Facebook this week. And you can get to our Facebook page, either just search on Facebook for us or go to coachingforleaders.com/Facebook. That'll take you right there. Hey, the link for the show notes is on our website, coachingforleaders.com/60. We are on the air every single Monday. And finally, wherever you are in the world, whatever's on your agenda today, take one idea from this show to engage and develop someone you lead. Take care, everybody.